Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and myself, Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at our website, horrormakesushappy.com. Here are your trigger warnings. We're going to be talking about horror movies and horror culture, which could involve anything from murder, rape, suicide, child abuse. There will be F-bombs. So if you're not prepared for that, please take care of yourself. But if you are ready, get ready to hear us drop lots of F-bombs and talk about really fucked up shit. So, today's guest is Ken Anthony II. He is best known for being an actor, director, lots of different hats. Very talented individual. Welcome to the show, Ken. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Doing good. Thanks for joining us.
So, I forget to ask, for best known stuff, on the IMDb, I saw SOL, King James, and As Night Falls. Would you say those are the things you're best known for, or is there other stuff that you're probably better known for?
Actually, probably better known. As Night Falls definitely was my first feature, so that was cool. SOL was like a little franchise I'm doing through my studio. And King James was, I think I did it last year, so that was great also. But like the thing that people usually recognize me for is a car commercial I did years ago. So out of everything else, the car commercial stands out of people's minds more. So that's the interesting part about it. But those are kind of the top films. Yes.
Okay. What are you working on right now?
There's a web series called My Last Vow that I play a role in. I just started filming also with Carlos Seguro on Honor Amongst Thieves. And there's a couple more that I should be working on soon that we're talking about, including a short animated film as well.
Okay. Nice. We'll get information from you later to put together a bio for the Horror Makes Us Happy page, and we can link to whatever you want us to, so we can get that set up for you later.
Yeah, you are a busy person, man. Like, not only is your whole list on IMDb fairly long, I don't think I've ever seen this many either just completed or in production or filming or announced stuff at the top of the list. Like, goddamn. You have like 20 things in works right now.
I like staying busy. I like to do, I usually do more than 4, but my mindset is at least 1 project per quarter. So that gives me a guaranteed 4 per year, one of which to be my own films through my studio. And then, nice. But usually it's multiple films per quarter. So I stay busy. Then it's up to, the directors and producers to actually complete the projects and get them out there.
Right.
Yep. There is always that delay.
Yeah. Some go faster than others, but it's always a time in there.
Yep. Sometimes it's better to go slower than faster, to measure twice, cut once kind of thing.
Yeah.
If it turns out to be good quality, yes, I agree.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if we talked to you about this or not, but for your benefit as well as the listeners, in this interview, what we'll be doing is asking 3 sets of questions covering your childhood, adult, teenage years, to find out what it is about horror that you personally like. We come at the same questions from multiple angles because this sometimes triggers memories we've forgotten about. But that said, it's not meant to be a therapy session. So if there are any questions you don't want to answer, just say you'll pass and we'll move on. And I also forgot, we kind of might want to say something for the listeners. Ken has a smoke alarm in the background that's going off about every 60 seconds. Apparently it's one of these newer ones that's hardwired into the house. So there was a battery in it for battery backup. He took the battery out. It's not stopping. So nothing we can do about that.
Hey, there's a movie idea. The smoke alarm that wouldn't die.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can see the concept already. Smoke alarm continuously goes off. There's a fire in the house. Fire demon comes out. Yet you still die because you ignored the smoke alarm. That's the whole movie.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm seeing it as like a parody of Terminator. The smoke alarm just won't fucking stop coming.
Oh my god, you could do like a tight close up on the red LED on the smoke alarm, and it like fades out like the Terminator's eye when he dies, but then it comes right back on.
Yeah.
Instead of I'll be back, it's like I'll stay here.
Right. I like it. Might get to work on writing a script on that.
Get on that.
Yeah.
So let's start with childhood. What are some of your... Sorry.
No, I was going to do the same thing. Let's start with childhood. What are some of your earliest memories of things horror related from childhood? Like either things that inspired you or things that scared you, or like films or books or anything that may have inspired you?
For the horror genre, my favorite film, and I'm not sure exactly when I watched it, so I'll put it in childhood. But my favorite film is The Exorcist. So yeah, so that kind of set the tone for everything. But I love vampires actually, so I'm sure there was a bunch of Dracula and all of that kind of stuff in there, and of course zombies with Night of the Living Dead, stuff like that. So all of that will be in my childhood.
Okay.
Like more like the Hammer films or like 80s vampire stuff.
80s are really what kind of grabbed me. I think Lost Boys was in the 80s, stuff like that.
There you go.
Yeah, those films. Was it Near Dark? I think was one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
forget about Near Dark.
Exactly. So those classic films, and then I think late 80s, early 90s was Blade. So that's in there. Let's see. The Hammer films I kind of found, and I mean, Hammer is part of the bigger known company for the vampire ones, but there were a couple other companies too. But yeah, I kind of found those, and then once you kind of get past the cheesiness of it compared to what they were doing in the 80s and 90s, then it's kind of like, oh, these actually do have some value. So I learned to appreciate them more as I got older.
Yeah, okay. It's like watching old 20s movies or 40s movies. 20s, geez, I don't think we even had like motion pictures back then. But no, like old black and white films where the acting is over dramatized, and you look at it on the surface level and you're like, these people are just hamming it up, man. This is stupid. But that was the culture back then, and they were actually taking themselves seriously. So
exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of them also came from like a theater background too, so that's you really have to project a lot more too. Versus on film where it's nuance.
Yeah. So I wrote some notes here. Let's go back through them. What was it, for example, that you enjoyed the most about The Exorcist?
Honestly, I've never narrowed it down to any one thing. It's just the film as a whole. I think the fact that because I grew up Christian, I'm still a Christian, but grew up Pentecostal. So the fact that you kind of see, I don't want to give too much credit to it. I guess I was, for lack of a better term right now, power. In the other side also, but it can be overcome. And then plus it's still like, even though it's a story about redemption, it's like still like, did the devil really lose? Right? So like I said, it's just I mean, because the sequels never really did it for me, but that film just stands out as like something about it always works for me. I never even tried to figure out what it was specifically about it.
Okay. What about Night of the Living Dead?
Well, now as an adult, I appreciate the whole fact that it's public domain, so it's going to be used in my comic books. But as a kid, it was just something different. When I found out it was almost like an indie project too, that even made it better. But just you look at it, and it's this one event that really, if you think as an adult, it would have changed the world. Not even should have, it would have changed the world. But in this one, it's like it's one night, it's done, and it's kind of like, oh, what in the world goes back to normal? It's like,
you're right.
You literally said in the news it happened in Russia and all over the world. But one night and everybody's normal again. Alrighty then.
Yeah, you would think they'd stop and be like, what the hell just happened?
Exactly. But yeah, just for what it was at that point in time. I mean, it kind of, not that I was really into the zombie genre before then, but it kind of revolutionized what it stood for. Like instead of just the shambling bodies, like, okay, we can fight against these. It's not just bodies walking around and somebody did some voodoo mist on you and now you're a zombie. So it kind of changed the game for what it was.
Okay. What about Lost Boys?
Vampire Junkie. At that point, I think I was in my teens when it came out. And
I was going to say that's probably more adolescent.
I could identify with it. Plus, the heroes, the Frog Brothers, were nerds, and I'm a nerd too. So I can almost put myself in there. I can kind of identify with those characters.
Yeah. Okay. Plus, by that age, we had all probably seen movies like The Goonies. So you see the Corey pair in there, and it's like a recognizable actor. So you're like, I like this movie already.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they brought it that much closer. Like I said, they carved out a niche. Unfortunately for bad acting, but they carved out a niche for themselves, where it was like the buddy cop thing without the cop part of it.
Mm-hmm. No press is bad press, right?
Oh, I'm not complaining. I mean, for what they accomplished, I'm still trying to get there in my career. So I can't take anything from them.
Yeah, and that's a well-known movie from the 80s that even if you're not a horror fan, like everybody knows that fucking movie. particularly women. Like there are a lot of women that like that movie.
Really?
You didn't notice that?
I mean,
Yeah, that's sarcasm.
I knew there was a woman contingent, but not like in terms of a lot of women. Like now, I'm wondering, like, do they actually outdo the men in terms of liking that film? Like that's a great film, but I didn't think about it like, oh, this is that cult following for women more so than men.
I would say it's not like a cult following specifically for women, but I would definitely say more women are probably fans of Lost Boys than men. It's not quite the Twilight of the 90s, but close.
I would have never put those two together.
Dude, Lost Boys is definitely better.
So I would have worded it a little differently. The way I would have said it is that it's not that there are more women fans of Lost Boys than male fans of Lost Boys. The way I would look at it is that in horror in general, the fan community for horror movies is a certain amount of the population. I don't know what number it would be, percentage wise, but if you think about that percentage of the population, there are a lot of other women who are not necessarily horror fans who are also fans of Lost Boys because of whatever sex appeal of the actors that were involved or whatever things that they liked about that movie. There are a lot of other women who are fans of that movie on top of the ones that are horror fans, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, that reminds me when he said the old Twilight thing. I remember I took my daughter to see it when she was younger, of course, when Twilight came out. And I said, we finally both like vampires and you're a sparkle.
Real vampires don't sparkle.
Exactly.
Anyway.
That's a whole other show.
Moving on. What about Near Dark?
It was really the only other, to me, vampire film that was kind of reality based in terms of you can almost see it happening. Like, okay, instead of being the traditional blah, 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 let me bite you in your neck and you're going to be entranced by my hypnosis. It's kind of like, it made it more gritty. Like if they existed, this could possibly be their reality. So I like their take on it versus doing the traditional, cape and you turn into a bat and all that kind of stuff.
If that's your opinion of that, I'm curious then what you felt about I Am Legend or Omega Man.
I'd say there's a couple of those because they remade it a couple of times. And that one, the whole dystopic, post-apocalyptic, future type of thing, sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. The original, I actually watched it after I watched the Will Smith remake. So it was almost like a different film in terms of like theirs was supposed to be like almost like a offshoot of vampires, but the Will Smith one was almost more like an offshoot of zombies on the zombie take. So when I finally watched it, I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is different. Now, would it make me say, and I do have it in my collection actually, because I try to get all the vampire movies when I see them, but would it make me say, hey, I really need to see this classic, I Am Legend film again? No. But was it good for an experience just to see a different take on it? Yes, it was. So it didn't really make me see a reality of it, though, because like I said, once again, once you put it in the future, I'm like, oh, well, everybody else is gone and all that stuff. It's kind of like, okay, well, that's not where I am right now. That's not reality. It's nice to imagine it, but the future could take on multiple forms. So do I think that's where vampires will end up, or even zombies, depending on which film you're watching? Probably not so much, but it was an interesting take.
So did you not think the Omega Man, at least of the two, was not more reality based, or no?
It was a potential one, but I mean, if you look at, for instance, our COVID-19 quarantine pandemic situation right now, even though a lot of the stuff in those books that talked about some of the situations were like, hey, look, all of this stuff is kind of coming true. Dean Koontz, you were a genius. You saw the future. And it's like, yeah, but it didn't go exactly the way he said. Or for other writers as well, so it's kind of like, it's a cool take, but like I said, at least for my mind, because I write some vampire type stuff too for some of my comic books, and I'm kind of like, I don't think they would have been like that. We're like the warriors, and it's like, ooh, come out at night and we'll play and we'll get you. And it's like, I think that if vampires were real and we were in that type of situation, it wouldn't be like you're gonna hide during the nighttime and in the daytime you're gonna come scavenge. Like, no, we run things. We're vampires. We are at the top of the food chain now, and now we don't have to worry about you as much. I think it
You
would
think
be more
it'd
like
be
that.
more like more like, oh shit, what the hell was that? Daybreakers?
Daybreakers was okay, but Daybreakers was too
Yeah, I mean it was okay,
civilized.
but I like the premise. You know how, like you said, like if vampirism was real, then they would just straight up take over. Like everyone would
Yeah, but I think in that
eat
one they made
food.
them a little bit too civilized. I mean, it's like okay, well, you're just regular civilization. You have fangs and you drink blood. It's like
Yeah,
you kind of tamed them down a little bit too much. You don't. To me, it's like okay,
yeah.
we made you PG because we wanted to show how society. It's kind of like when and I can't think of the name of the movie right now. I think it was John Travolta in it though, where it's like switch places between black folk and white folk, and you got the black folk are the ones who are like we're the majority, and the white folk the minority, and let's see how society would be different. It's kind of like okay, well, but everything's gonna be the same, just as black people running things versus white people. You know, it didn't really say okay, what are the society changes that would be done if you were looking at it realistically. It was just kind of like we just swapped you. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's really exploring the situation. It's like you have a good concept. What are you doing with it?
Yeah.
Vampire toothpaste.
You mentioned,
you know?
well,
That would be your plasma, all for you.
so you mentioned the book. I don't think it was Dean Koontz that wrote the book for I Am Legend, but have you read
he
the
didn't
I
write
Am
that
Legend
No,
book?
I'm just talking about in terms of pandemic type of stuff. Dean Koontz was always writing about science things. I was relating that to the quarantine and the pandemic we're having now. So,
Right.
so no, he didn't write. I don't know who wrote that book actually. But yeah, Dean
I
Koontz
can't
didn't write that one.
remember.
Dean Koontz always does like medical based type of books.
Well, the reason that I asked if you had read the book is, well, first, have you read the book?
No, I haven't.
I Am Legend.
No.
Okay. The reason I ask is, and I'll be honest, I haven't read it either, but none of the movies, as far as I know, that have come out based on that book actually use the twist at the end of the book that is the reason for the title I Am Legend, which to me is like the most genius part of the whole thing, and kind of ties into what you were saying about the society and how it may or may not have played out the way that it did. But the way, as I understand it, the way it works out in the book is that, and this is, I think, better portrayed in Omega Man than Will Smith's version. But in the Omega Man version, you know, there's this other society. They eventually capture this guy and they take him to put him on trial or put him on display. And at the end of the book, what you come to find out is that, you know, he was going around killing all these things, thinking that they're mindless creatures or whatever. But you find out, no, they are a society. They can think. And when he's put on display, what happens is the adults bring their kids to come see this guy tied up, and they point out to him and say, see, that's the boogeyman. That's the guy that's going to come kill you when we tell you to go to bed and you don't go to bed.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so that's the whole twist of yeah, they come out at night, but they're nocturnal during the day. It's not like you're thinking, oh, it'd be more of a power thing. They'd be in more control. Well, that's what I'm saying with the I Am Legend book. It was a kind of a setup for that, the twist of this is the boogeyman. Anyway, kind of got off on a topic, but I thought that was interesting since you kind of brought up the reality of the situation. That to me, I thought was a genius thing that, like, I would have never thought of that.
Yeah.
To do something like that.
So that's
Anyway.
but like I said, it's those type of things that, and actually that makes me want to read the book almost. But there's those type of things that is when you flip the thing. It's like, okay, this is what our common perception is because we feel we're the top. You know, so when you switch it and say, okay, well, whoever you feel is below you, whether it's another creature, whether it's, you know, a fictional, whatever the case is, how would they view you? You know, we right. assume you're mindless because you're not us, basically. You know, but right. It's like what will really happen? Like if to the semi-reality base, if you look at dolphins or whatever the case is, or whatever creatures we hunt, what if they were really able to think in that manner? And they're like, listen, it's not that we run from you because, ooh, gun. It's like, no, we run from you because we realize you're trying to kill us. You're trying to take us out of this world. And you're almost trying to commit suicide on our people because you think hunting is fun. You know, so it's kind of like, it's like, how would the other side view it if they could think to the levels or beyond what we do? And we just don't understand that that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So going back to just focus on childhood for a minute. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you weren't sure when you saw Exorcist and some of these other things, Night of the Living Dead and Near Dark and whatever, those may have come later. Is there anything that you specifically do remember experiencing in your childhood?
To a degree, but not horror related. My father was in the Air Force, so we were in Japan for a little bit. So, I like of course Godzilla, the Shogun Warriors before everything got popular over in America, stuff like that. So like stuff like that. So I guess the closest to any horror related, if you want to base it really loosely on horror, at that time period would be like Godzilla. I remember liking Godzilla vs. King Kong, stuff like that. But I mean, those weren't really scary. That's just like, it was cool. So
what about that one that was like a live action version of an anime where this dude had he was an alien hunter and he had a giant mushroom on top of his head and then like a little doll face in his forehead, I think.
Why does that sound familiar? I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it right now either. It was like a cross between Guyver and fucked up anime horror.
Okay.
I can't think of what it is, but I must have seen it because that sounds way too familiar for me not to have seen that one. But it doesn't stand out enough for me to say, I know that one. But dang, what is that? I can picture it in my mind too. That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I probably did see that one. I don't know if I saw it when I was a little kid, when I was in Japan, or after I came back to the States and stuff like that, because we were only over there for like a year or so. But I don't remember that one. I remember, like I said, horror wasn't that big when I was a little kid. It wasn't as big. Like I said, as I got older, like I said, the vampire ones are really the ones that kind of grabbed me.
Okay,
but
we'll go through it a bit more. Not every question is going to apply to you. There's a lot of questions we ask just because you never know what's going to apply to whom.
Yeah.
So here's one about childhood. Maybe, well, not necessarily related to horror things. Did you do anything Halloween related or celebrate Halloween when you were a kid?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, once again, grew up in the castle. So what a lot of churches do is, I forgot what night they call it. They actually give it a different name. And then, so you can come in your costume and have
All Hallows Eve.
Well, All Hallows Eve is the actual. Well, no, it's all right. So Halloween is basically all Hallows Eve. That's just another name for it. But that's more like the pagan observation of it, and that's right, because they were based on the solstice and all that other stuff anyways. We just said, like I said, Christians would take it and it's...
Well, then the next day is All Saints Day.
Was it that one?
No, I'm see, this is where I don't pay attention as much as I guess I should have in church. Which I'd probably get killed with my family.
I'm not saying I remember it a lot. I don't know why I remember those things, but
yeah, but they would do a lot of times. They like I said, the parents come with the kids and they give them candy in a safe atmosphere. So, we did celebrate it. As I got older, I hang out with friends. Basically, we just have an excuse to get drunk and say Halloween themed stuff. But I did celebrate Halloween, and then it continued as I got older and stuff. But usually as I got older, I just hang out with friends. We'd watch horror movies, drink, stuff like that. So
when you did the thing with the Pentecostal stuff with your parents, did you dress up or did you just go like normal dress and still get the candy? No, we
would dress up. We had like little costumes. I think one time I had like a werewolf costume, something like that. So I think there's a picture of that somewhere. But anyways, we would dress up a little bit. You just couldn't go. They wouldn't have us go like too gory or too crazy with it. But you could have like little costumes on because kids like the mood and the atmosphere. They like the play. So the fantasy of it. So you put on your costume so you're like all other kids instead of like you go back to school and then the other kids are like, we dressed up as so and so and here's all the candy we got, and you're like, well, I had to wear a suit.
Well, I asked because there are some denominations where it's like that. You can't dress up, so that's why I was curious.
Well, most of them don't even let you celebrate. So it depends. It's the denomination and then how much the church. Usually when it happens, churches are trying to find a way. Listen, how can we give you the best of the secular world without committing to being secular? So they try to find alternatives for it. So like, if your kids want to go out and play, we'll let them play, but we'll do it in our backyard because we know our backyard is safe. So we're just going to call this something else, And so a lot of times they would do that just so you would keep your, I think parishioners is the wrong word, but you keep the members of the church happy. You keep the children happy, and you can still try to give them a word as you're doing it.
Yeah, congregation.
Yeah, that works. Thank you. Sometimes I go blank on words. I know too many of them sometimes.
I can relate.
So, but in your childhood, I'm guessing then Halloween at least didn't hold any special value for you. You didn't enjoy, or did you? Did you enjoy putting on the costumes? Or
Well, I enjoyed it because it's what I knew. You don't know what you don't know until you find out about it. So,
right,
I knew about Halloween from friends and stuff, but they celebrated, we celebrated. It wasn't like
Right.
it wasn't made a big deal. So I never noticed there was anything to miss.
Did you have a time where you were actually, like in real life, scared of something, terrified of something as a kid?
No, not really. I I had a big family, so I mean, pretty much every situation that could happen in terms of like roughhousing, getting beat down by parents was far worse. No, let me rephrase that because that sounds like abuse. Getting spankings by parents.
It's a thin line there.
And other parents, exactly, like other parents spanking you as well because they're your aunts and uncles, and ooh, you screwed up. Yeah,
Yep.
Those were way more scary than any horror movie I ever saw. So no, wasn't really scared as a kid. I was more scared of getting caught for stupid stuff. That was my biggest issue.
Did you have any scary dreams, like reoccurring dreams or nightmares?
I'm sure I went through horror, scary dreams because, like I said, I like the horror genre, but nothing that made me wake up in a sweat type of thing. The closest that I even got to it, actually, this is not even in my kid years, but like Candyman was one of the movies made me say, you know something? If this is possible, because parallel universes and stuff, I'm just not going to say Candyman in the mirror 5 times.
Right.
I like myself enough for that.
Sorry,
Just in case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, in terms of like as a kid, nothing that stands out. I'm sure I did have dreams about stuff or whatever, but nothing that stands out. Like, I woke up in a drench and a sweat and all that stuff. None of that.
Okay. So at least for you personally, as opposed to our other guests, for you, we won't say that necessarily horror made you happy in your childhood, at least. One last question about childhood. Did you have any friends or family members who were fans of horror?
Friends, I think quite a few of my friends, probably did. Some of my friends and I played like D&D and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but see, that's not really horror. Only in terms of like fantasy, you've got monsters in there. So like,
right.
We appreciated monsters. We weren't really worried about horror per se. See what I'm saying? So when that becomes a regular part of your life, it's kind of hard to be scared of it. Like even vampires, as much as I love vampires, like, ooh, vampire. Yay. And it's like, no, we're supposed to be scary. Boo. Like, yeah, no, boo. Boo doesn't work for me. You drink blood. That's how that's going to work there. Thank you very much. So, yes, I have friends who are into the same stuff I was, which is horror and sci-fi and possibilities and whatever type of situations. But I don't think a lot of us, and you probably have to ask them to be sure if they were ever into this stuff. But like looking at it like, ooh, it's a scary genre. It's like, no, we just appreciate it. It's something else we just like. It's like we like superheroes, just like we like all this other stuff.
Okay. Again, not every question hits for everybody. Just one of those things that going down the checklist.
I wanted to. I feel like I missed something now. I wanted to be scared now.
So let's see. Lost Boys and Candyman, I think you said would have been more towards your teenage years.
Yeah, Lost Boys, I looked it up, was 87. So yeah, I was, 89, I graduated 17. So I was like 15. So when that came out.
Blade probably would have been closer to your teenage years too.
Yeah, because I think that was like early 90s for Blade. So yeah, it had to be right around there.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds like for childhood, it was mainly Exorcist and Night of the Living Dead, wasn't it?
Right. No, I'm just moving some stuff down to the teenage years now because if we're going to talk about that, I can make my list of what was relevant here.
I found it. It was called Iria Bounty Hunter, or Zerum was the name of the guy with the mushroom head with the doll face.
Cool. I think Bounty Hunter is what I knew about. And Blade was 98. Wow, I was old. Because at that same time they did the Vampire also came out at the same time. It's like they picked the worst time that one came out because like you put it against Blade.
Was it an Interview with the Vampire?
No, that was later. What was it, James? Was it Vampires? I think it was. It came out like
Yeah, John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yeah, it came out right when Blade came out. Like that, when you had to
Yeah.
choose between Blade and that one, I was like, well, you lose because Blade was cool. So
Yeah, plus Blade's, based on comics. You got that connection too, but I never thought about that. You're absolutely right. That's a fucking Carpenter film, man.
yeah,
All of his movies are awesome. And were it not for the fact that it had the competition of a comic book vampire movie, it's a great combination.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Interesting.
So going back to teenage years for a second, Lost Boys, maybe Candyman, any other movies or books or stories from the teenage years jump out at you as being memorable?
I couldn't even tell you which books. I was reading a lot. I still read a lot. I got books all over the place, but I was avidly reading a lot then. But like I said, I couldn't tell you which, because I would read a book, go to the next one, read a book, go to the next one. I couldn't tell you which title stood out. That's probably when I got into like the Dean Koontzes and the Stephen Kings and all, as far as the major authors, I was reading a lot of their stuff. Like I said, I couldn't tell you which particular story from one or another stood out or what titles and stuff like that. But that's when I learned how to appreciate that stuff. Also, you got to look at The Shining, which actually The Shining, I think The Shining might have been my kid years. When did The Shining come out? I'm like,
Shining was 70s.
Oh, so that technically would have been Shining was 80.
Well, wait, the book or the movie?
The movie. I'm talking about the movie. Yeah. I don't think I ever read the book, to be honest, but the movie came out in 1980.
Okay.
So, let's see, I was 9. Technically, you can count that as a kid one then, but I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies too. So that's
you might have been 9 when it came out, but that doesn't mean you saw it when you were 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, there's a lot of movies that come out back then, and then you see them later on in life. Or did you see the Shining when you were a kid, or later on?
I don't really know. So
it was somewhere back there in that before time, long ago.
I'm gonna say I probably saw it a little bit later, just because I'm trying to think of when I had some independence, and 9 was not the time when I had independence to go watch movies when I wanted to. So I probably saw it a little bit later. But still one of my favorite movies though. Nicholson killed it on that. I never did watch the remake that King did though. So, but yeah, the Jack Nicholson The Shining was great.
Okay, so Dean Koontz, Stephen King. I'm surprised that you can't call out any specific books, particularly of King, because like they're well known, like The Shining, It, The Tower, whatever. I don't know. I can't even think.
Actually, I never read The Tower. I never read The Tower or that series. That's like what, 3 books in that series, I think.
I think
so. The Dark Tower.
Yeah, Dark Tower. Isn't it like the trilogy for that art?
I don't know that it's a trilogy. I think it's just as long as 3 books.
Yeah, right.
It's a very long book from what I've heard. Yeah, it's 3 books. As in, like, it's like 12,000 pages.
It's like the Lord of the Rings. We split it into 3 books because it's just fucking long.
Oh
my god. That means if they ever make it into they did make it into a movie. Never mind.
Yeah. I remember, but in which Kevin Smith was the movie? Was it where he's talking about the movies? It's like, yeah, in the first movie, we're walking. Ooh, a ring. In the second movie, we're still walking. It's just the way he broke it down in that one. It wasn't Clerks. It was the one where they had the movies restaurant. They were actually it might have been the Dogma that showed it in. Yeah, I think it was Dogma. And when they did that, it was just so funny. Like, I hadn't thought about it like that. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah. And they had those fucking eagles the whole time. Like, what? Really? Really, you made me walk across all this shit, and we had eagles?
Exactly.
That's a whole nother
what are we talking about?
Yeah. So back to the fact that, I suck at book names and stuff like that. Things tend to blend together for me. It's a bad habit of mine. So I suck at time. Like if you say, well, what happened 5 years ago? I'm like, I don't know. And you say, well, this incident. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that. This is so-and-so and so-and-so. Like that was 5 years ago. I'm like, oh, my bad. I suck at that. So that might as well have been 10 years ago.
So nothing else really jumped out at you during teenage years. We already talked about Lost Boys a bit. For most people, horror starts off as being scary and then gradually becomes entertainment. Was there ever a time for you where horror was scary? Only on
because I was thinking possibilities. So like there's only certain films that made me think in terms of it could be scary. Like once again, Candyman, The Shining, it's because the story was so well done in The Shining, in the acting is like it was just that tension that it built. See what I'm saying? So, but if you think, to me at least, so if you think of most horror movies, it's entertainment. Like, not that I looked at them as cheesy, but a lot of times just like you just sit there and you lose yourself for an hour and a half or so. So, like when I would watch it when they first came out, or watch The Blob and stuff like that, I'm kind of like, oh, this is cool. You know, I guess it should have been more scary than it was, but this is me. But like The Blob and stuff like that, this is cool. Vampires, this is cool, but some are more cool than others, you know. So like I said, Blade was really running things. Lost Boys was running things. It's like, but there were no real scary moments in terms of that made me say like, oh, that was gruesome. Now some effects when they did really cool like decapitations and stuff or pulling the heart out, those were always cool. But like I said, it's very rare for me to get scared about stuff like that. It's just like I said, I can appreciate it more than I can others. If it's cheesily done, it's like, oh, that was cool because of what they tried to do. And when it's well done, it's like, oh, shit was so cool. You know, then like I said, you know, so it's grades of coolness. Like I said, as far as truly being scared, since I've always been like the nerd into horror and stuff, is never really been too many scary moments. Beyond, like I said, thinking of like, well, you know, Candyman in the alternate universe could be something to be real. So I'm not saying it, you know. I've never. I think actually I did try the whole Bloody Mary thing one time, but that wasn't because of a movie. It's just because I thought it was cool and let me see what happens. The thing was, it was okay. I mean, I watched a lot of this stuff, and especially as I got older, I used to help out at Britain theaters, so I used to watch movies all the time, like even more then. So let's see what else. See, outside of vampire genre, I'm trying to get out of what I normally would watch, because that's normally I would go to those. I was okay with zombies. I had a friend in the werewolves. So I had to watch werewolf movies all the time too.
Yep.
What was the bullet one? Silver Bullet, or something like that. He used to like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silver Bullet was really good.
Talking about that? Colt 45. Sorry.
No, it's Coors. It's the Silver Bullet.
Sorry.
45.
You're right. No, it was Coors. My bad. Coors, Colt, you know.
Silver Bullet was fucking sick, though, man. That was one of the best werewolf makeup effects I've ever seen. The only thing was the transformation. Oh, they went with like this horrible CGI fade that just went from the guy to the wolf, and it's like, come on. Like American Werewolf in London did it. You can do it too. You got a great practical effect costume. Just, you know, make a little bit of practical it changing into that. But no.
They ran out of
Michael
budget.
Jackson fucking CGI fade.
Well, see, that's the thriller though for the horror. Like, I'm not gonna say the horror genre because 7K is still the song. But that movie, that video was great. Like that even turned heads and stuff. And that was by American Werewolf and
same guy, Rick Baker.
Yeah. So I mean, like I like seeing that cross pollination in terms of like you can go from here to here and make these ideas pop more because you're incorporating different things into them too.
Yeah. You mentioned two that did scare you a bit, Candyman and The Shining. You mentioned, so Candyman, it was because possible reality, you know, alternate reality. What about The Shining? What was it that scared you about that?
Just the tension. I mean, it's like the story is well done, but like here's something that a lot of times these days, it almost seems like it's a tedium. But back in the I'll even include the 70s for some stuff, but the 80s, early 90s, you had a story. You vested yourself in the story. So if it's well written and that drama builds and that tension builds, you're almost at the edge of your seat because you're like, you want to see what happens next. Then some shit happens, like, oh shit, I wasn't ready for that. You know, like I'm here. Is I'm here? What the fuck did Jack Nicholson say now? Shit, I love that line. I'm back.
Oh, here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. Thank you very much. I drew a blank on one of my favorite lines. Because by that time, Batman had come out and fuck it. No, Batman came out in 89, but close enough. That here's Johnny line is like, oh shit, that was perfect. And there was just so many moments with the hallway of blood and all that stuff too, from the elevator and stuff. It's like there's so many moments in there, but it built to it. You didn't worry about that 30 minutes or 40 minutes it took to build to it and to build to that result because you were so vested in the film, the time passed without you thinking about it. Yeah. And like I said, these days they want, they want back to back. You know, here's a scary moment. 2 more seconds. Here's another scary moment because that's how you expect it. You got to have immediate gratification. It's like no,
it's
but
basically a sine wave of tension moment jump scare, tension moment, jump scare. Just
exactly. And so you lose something in that. It's like, okay, well, you got what you wanted for that film. You paid your $10 or whatever. But did you really appreciate the story and what went into the film, or you just liked the fact that the effects were cool and you got scared for that 2 seconds?
The latter.
So so that's where, like I said, The Shining comes in. It's like I like to see, and as a writer myself, I guess I like to see things where they build and where, you know, by the time something happens. Now there's times when it can go wrong, like Man of Steel. Being a comic book junkie, I know it's not horror, but to me, took too fucking long. Don't know why the hell they did all that building. Like, you'll see Superman in the film's 2/3 of the way over. It's like, motherfucker, it's Man of Steel. It ain't. We'll wait for this motherfucker. What the hell?
You gotta do character development, man. You gotta see how, you know, he folds his laundry or mows the lawn, or, you know,
Superman
goes
has been
to
around 70 fucking
school
years
and-
or longer. They don't no character development. Well, I mean, he doesn't need to jump right into the city and be like, I'm Superman already, bitches. Here I am, save the day. But I mean, we don't need an hour and a half worth of build up to see him in a suit that we know he got already. Let us know what we need to know. Let us feel about his parents and stuff, and then let's keep it moving. Let's get to some action now. But that's because it's the comic book based film in terms of it being a superhero genre. Because I mean, there are other comic book based films and stuff like that that don't deal with that. But excuse me. But like I said, sometimes it can become kind of plotting when you're going too long to get to the payoff. But you, like I said before, horror films, you want that. You want it to get to the point where you're like, okay, here's the normalcy. We set you in this environment now because you know what the normal environment is. So now we're going to switch that on you.
What's the tension?
Exactly.
You don't have any tension when you're doing background for Superman.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, we like Clark, but we knew we liked him when the film started because it's about him.
Yeah.
So
kind of a pre-existing universe already.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I see what you mean with horror movies. You want that overdeveloped character development and almost a reverse of that, because you know what's going to happen in horror movies too.
You know what's going to happen.
People are going to die.
Yeah.
Or if it's done right. Like, you see some horror movies where nobody dies or nobody that you care about dies, and it's kind of like, well, that was a waste. you know? So I mean, you still want some of that. Yeah, you want some of that still. Though. You want it to be like, okay, it's a vampire. He's gonna bite somebody, this motherfucker. But let's say you've got 5 people, and the main characters, because you can almost guarantee it's gonna be the pretty lady that survives.
Final girl.
Exactly. The black dude's gonna die first, or within the first couple 3 people.
Not always.
99.9% of the motherfucking time.
It's a trope.
If it's a black dude in there, he's dying first, or at least in the first 3. And
or running away first.
Yeah,
or that.
To step up for my people, we do not run away first. However, we will run. But we won't be first. We're like, oh shit, Freddy, gotta go. We out of here. Fuck y'all. That bitch is dead.
Right.
You know? So we will run, but we're not gonna stand up like, listen, that bitch got a machete. Let me put my dukes up because I learned how to fight in the hood. Like, no, those two don't go together. He's got a machete. I'm going to run. He's got claws. He fought me in my dream. He scratched the shit out of me. I woke up. The scratches were still there. I'm not going to sleep anymore. Fuck Freddy. This is my new life now. So,
immediately starts Googling, can you mainline an IV of coffee?
exactly. You know, so yeah, I mean, but those were the tropes. Those were, if there were memes back in the day, those would be the memes of the day. Yeah. So those are things. Okay. But when you get beyond that, like I said, you want to have somebody that by the time they die, because the buildup is to the death, you're like, oh man, I really didn't want so-and-so to die. Oh man, that was he should have did something different. Or you get the people in the theater after watching it with you who talk to the screen, which is fucking annoying. But it's like, turn left. Why did you fucking turn left? Why don't you shut the fuck up? You're too close to the screen, and I should have to hear you over the film. How about that? So for those people who are listening to this right now, this is the cursing he warned y'all about. It's gonna be a lot more of this.
Yes. That's what makes it fun.
So I want to ask you something just to clarify. Going back to Candyman for a minute, you mentioned one of the things that scared you was that it was this possible alternate reality. There's 2 ways I could see this going. You could, or maybe both. You could be afraid of that because you're afraid of the fact that, you know, if you say Candyman 5 times and he comes and kills you because you're afraid of getting killed. You could also have, because you did mention, you know, being raised Pentecostal, and I don't know how much of that is ingrained in you. There's also the the fear of the God versus the devil and the demons and the whole religious and spiritual part of it. Which of those two weighs greater in your mind, or is it equal?
In relation to the film, it'd be more of the former. It's not the whole Pentecostal Christian based one. It's because basically I'm a nerd. I read science books and I read about parallel universes and alternate realities when I was probably like 8. So plus I was also a comic book junkie, and in Fantastic Four they had a whole bunch of those damn things. Yeah. So I always look at everything in reality as it's possible to go either way. Like for instance, right now I could be answering your question, or I could be saying this is bullshit, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm not doing that, but it's always a choice. Now in some universe I probably did do that. So I always look at the things as possibilities and what's the best option or the most probable option. And in this reality, instead of limiting and saying it's only one reality, I say, no, there's a possibility of more. Do I know for sure? No, because I'm not in those other ones. So I'm going to assume that it's a possibility. So Candyman, was I truly scared Candyman was going to come? No. Was I scared that there might be a possibility that motherfucker out there somewhere in some parallel universe and he might say, you calling me? Yeah, I come. It's possible. Who knows? I'm not saying Candyman. Why take a chance?
and likewise, there are possibilities that you could have answered the question the other way, and so I have to ask the question.
There you go. Exactly. But yeah, on the Christian side of it, I mean, I of course, like I said, I am a Christian. I don't subscribe to religion per se. But I still look at possibility. Like, and this is a slight deviation, so I'll get back to like horror in a minute. But when people are like, oh, God is definitely a he. Well, why? Because God is all powerful. Why has he got to be he just to make you happy? Now, I'm not saying God
says he in the book.
But man wrote the book. I feel that God inspired the book. Man wrote the book. Man is inherently flawed, and therefore we fucked it up. Yeah. So not everything is supposed to be, like word for word from the Bible. That's my personal opinion. That's what I stand by. That's how it goes. So like I said, I look at things. The Bible is a good guide, and I think it was inspired by God. But like when it comes down to it, like we wrote the book, so I'm sure God said, "Make woman equal. She's your rib," and man said, "Yeah, but we need them to cook and clean. So what we're gonna do is make them second-class citizens in this book, and that's how it's gonna be." Yay! God's like, bitch. So once again, my personal opinion. I don't think God said bitch, but hey, whatever you feel like saying, it's God.
So while we're in that kind of direction of a tangent, let me ask, is there anything horror related that has scared you on the spiritual or religious, I can't think of the right word now, but vein?
I don't know. When we touched on that earlier, it sounded more like the things that scared you were the things that were grounded in reality, like things that could happen. Even potentially Candyman, because that's tangent.
Right, but those reality, are the other things that we have talked about.
Still
so now I'm asking, is there anything that we haven't talked about that did scare you in that manner related to the spiritual or religious stuff?
Not really. And the reason I say that is like, because of my faith, I don't really get scared of what the spiritual realm. I guess I put it that way. So, like for instance, my grandmother, great preacher, pastor, elder. I've seen like the whole talking in tongues. I have an aunt that has, done missions where she goes, prays over people, gets rid of demons, all that stuff. So it's like, and actually one of my godchildren, I remember I went over to her parents' house, and they're like, "Oh, it's a ghost or something, or whatever." I prayed the ghost away. So like, my faith is strong. It was strong, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't Casper, just for the record. But they said something was happening. I prayed. It stopped. I'm saying I won. And that's a spiritual sense. So was I really scared? No. But do I believe the other side of that? Do I believe in them? I'm like, to believe in demons and ghosts and all that stuff. I'm like, if you believe in God, you got to believe in the rest of it. You can't just say, well, I'm just going to believe in the good stuff I like and not the bad stuff. It's if you take one, you got to take the rest of it. So am I aware that there's demons and I'm aware that there's ghosts and all that kind of stuff? Yeah. But I mean, they don't scare me. I just don't want to have, like, I'm not going to go invite them to my house. Like, if you know somebody's a killer, you don't say, "Hey, I'm not scared of you, so come on in and stay for the night." It's like, no, I know you're a killer. Stay the fuck out. I'm going to shoot you. So same type of thing. I'm like, I'm not afraid of demons, but I do recognize, okay, demons were once angels. So it's not like they're powerless. They just can also be overcome.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just like one of those things, because there are some people who are legitimately afraid of some of that stuff. So thought I would ask.
I look at it. I mean, in terms of that, though, it's what's the reason you're afraid of? Usually, when you're afraid of something, it's because it's a lack of knowledge or a lack of preparation. So since, like I said, I was quote unquote prayed up, and and I try to stay that way, and I have the faith that I can overcome it. What am I going to be afraid of? But like I said, but do I recognize them for what they are? Like I said, just I recognizing the killer, or recognizing the drug dealer, or recognizing whatever the situation is. If I know what something is, then why am I afraid of it? To me, you just strategize a way to survive it or to get through it. So, like I said, biblically, no, I mean, like I said, I guess I'd be afraid of God because God said, and it's not actual fear, but like God said, hey, I'm not going to flood y'all. I'm going to burn you the fuck up next time. Like that does not sound like fun.
Huh.
But let's hope I don't get 40 days of burning because that's bullshit. I don't want that in my life. But
is that really what they said in that verse? That there's 40 days of rain, and then if we fuck up again, we get 40 days of fire?
No.
Well, basically, I would have to find where it is in there because he doesn't say that specifically. But basically, he just says, "I'm not going to flood you again." And next time y'all fuckers gonna burn. But yeah, he's not saying let's say 40 days of fire though. But he does say it's gonna basically be like fire or something like that, and I'm not flooding you again. It's gonna be something different.
Yeah, I didn't say I wasn't going to kill everybody again. I just said I wasn't going to flood you again.
Exactly.
And what if it means like burning not in the literal sense, but burning in like the more irritative sense, like the penis? Whole world just breaks out in herpes?
That would so suck because I hadn't thought about that before. That's fucking hilarious. That would also be a good horror movie. But no.
Well, but see, if everybody has
we'll call it The Burning.
Well, but see, if everybody has it, then it's not really a problem because everybody has it.
Oh,
yeah, but it would still suck. I mean,
as a guy, if you're constantly burning 24/7, you're scratching your dick off. That's fucking scary. I don't want that in my life. I want to know. There's no cure for this.
Holy shit!
No, this
is a horror movie. I'm writing this. I'm writing that script tonight. That's fucking.
So those possibilities would scare me. We've always thought World War III would be that, but hey, look at you finding the diseases to make it happen. Yay!
Yeah.
Oh man. So you mentioned you did have some friends, at least. I don't know if this came in during the teenage years or the adult years, but you had some friend who liked werewolf movies, and I think some other friend that you mentioned liked some other kind of horror movie.
Yeah, traditionally, my friend Petter, he's a werewolf. I'm the vampire. So we've been friends since like late high school, and so that was always our thing. Like when Underworld came out, it was like yes, because the whole thing was which side are you on, werewolves or vampires? And I'm like, fuck it, vampires gonna win. And it's like, nah, I watched the movie. I like they're the bad guys. It's bullshit. But yeah, of course he was cheering for the werewolf. So we would always he would get me to watch, like I said, The Silver Bullet and I don't know whatever the fuck other werewolf movies were out. If I was hanging out with him, and vice versa, hanging out with me, we watching vampires. How it's gonna go. So we had that. We always had an appreciation for each other and stuff like that. But like even back then, he had his hair was longer and curlier. So he was like, yeah, and he was Serbian. He's fucking alive. He's Serbian, or at least part Serbian. So he's hairy as a motherfucker. So yeah, I'm like, see, you're manifesting your werewolf. Now you cut his hair. I like, you're neutered werewolf. You took away that.
Like Samson
was neutered very very much in the figurative sense because the motherfucker got 6 kids, so he was not neutered. So
sounds like he needed to be.
Yeah.
I have one friend who did pass away, but he got 9 kids. So I would say he was trying to catch up to him, didn't quite make it.
Let's see. So
that is far too many children.
Yeah. All right. So, but that was during your teenage years you had met him.
Yeah, I met him. I think I was getting ready to graduate actually. So I was 17 and he was 16, or I was 16 and he was 15. So I'm like right in that area. So
starting to get some of the social benefit, I guess you could say, of having friends that are into some of the same stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, beyond D&D. But like prior to that, I still have friends who I did D&D with. That was actually D&D I got into like middle school. Okay. So I mean, that was friends I was socially actively going out with versus, hey, it's lunchtime. Let's go meet in the middle of the school and play D&D and roll dice and stuff.
So you mentioned in your teenage years you did kind of participate in Halloween, but it was more just going over to friends' houses and stuff. But was there anything, any dressing up in costumes, any parties, Halloween parties?
Did I? No, not really. No, it was more movies and stuff. More movies and alcohol. Which I wasn't supposed to be drinking. Sorry, Mom. Had a game called Running Man. It's kind of like, you run through the woods, hide. If they catch you, then you gotta get to the base or some bullshit before. Fun times, good excuse to drink and have fun with friends. But as far as dressing, I don't think we ever dressed up. I did go to, in my adult years, I know we're not adult years yet, but I did dress up of some parties, but I'm not really like that cosplayer dress up type of guy. So, I mean, my dressing up usually went to, let me see if I can find a trench coat and some vampire fangs, and yay, I'm Blade again.
It's always a good, easy go-to.
Exactly. But as far as like in teenage years, I don't recall like any kind of dress up parties, or if I did, I'm sure it was something like really cheesy and quick. It wasn't anything I had to put any work into.
Let's see. Did you have any recurring dreams or scary dreams as a teen?
I'm trying to think. No recurring ones, no. Scary. No real nightmares to speak of. I'm sure I've had stuff because me being me, I'm always just like I'm thinking while I'm awake, I'm thinking while I'm asleep as well. So everybody does that. I don't know why I even made that point. But thinking of like in terms of like demons and like coming up with concept and ideas for horror movies and scary stuff. So vampires and stuff like that were in there. But like I said, nothing recurring. It'd just be an idea that I dreamed through. So it could be like anything from, somebody close dying or being killed to, hey, there's vampires in this dream. It's like, oh, that's bullshit. Don't bite me. No, fuck that. I like vampires. Bite me. Whatever works.
So we've been focusing a lot on fears, and there have been a lot there. So let's focus on the opposite of the pleasure. So what is it that you have enjoyed about these vampire movies?
Have you seen From Dusk to Dawn and Selma Hayek?
Well, that's a different.
A couple times.
That's not an enjoyment of vampires. That's an enjoyment of Selma Hayek.
She was a vampire. What are you talking about?
It's not the
Don't take away my enjoyment.
Something tells me it's not the vampire part that you're enjoying.
The biggest.
There's a certain seductiveness. So it's probably why you were talking about the woman like in vampires and horror and stuff too. Not to the Twilight level in terms of like we sparkling. I'm 400 years old, but I'm acting like a teen, so I can fall in love with a teenage girlfriend. It's like that's creepy, and it makes you a pedophile. And nobody talks about that in the film. But there's a certain seductiveness. Vampires were always cool. It's like, well, not always, but the depending on how they wrote them, vampires were like, I'm going to make you want to fall in love and want to give yourself to me. So whether they did it in a second by hypnosis or they did it in years and hours or days or whatever, it was always like that pining love. That was a very cool touch on a lot of vampire movies. So that would be the cool part. But Salma Hayek, I loved her because she was a vampire. She was in the damn film, so I'll be taking that from me.
No, I see what you mean, though. Vampires always kind of come with that almost built-in charisma or appeal. They're just always written as someone that someone wants to be. Or
seductive, cool, charisma. Okay. No scary dreams. Nothing in particular in actual life terrified you as a teen? Near-death experiences or?
No, I mean, lose people you're close to, but I don't, my attitude is like, that's something I say all the time, is like when people say, oh, well, they died too soon. I'm like, no, they didn't. They died right on time because they can't die unless God lets them die. So what you're saying is they died too soon for you. So once I got that perspective and that mindset, then death was not a problem. Well, I started doing security. This is actually not teens, though. This is like in my early 20s. So I started doing security off and on. So I've seen a lot of things there. So it's not dreams per se. It's like I've seen people die like literally in front of me. So stuff like that is kind of like, it just reminded me how temporary we're here. Like I said, I'm not afraid of death because it happens to us all, but it's kind of like, well, damn, I don't want to die like that. I was not planning on tonight being my night. So while I feel bad for them, I'm happy that wasn't me. So, probably a bad thing to say, but that's how I look at it. I'm like everybody's gonna have that time, everybody's gonna have a situation, but like I said, literally watch somebody get stabbed or shot or whatever, and it's like right there, it's like, oh, that's not good. But as far as my teenage years, usually I hear stories. Like I actually knew one guy who was basically he was the one who took care of problems. Little guy too, little Mexican dude I used to know. And that's not me being racist, because that's what he was. But he was in gangs. And so he was the one who wanted to take care of problems if something went down. But like, for instance, when it was time for he decided he wanted to get out of the gang life, they basically said, you have to survive in this city. You can't leave the city. But if you survive and we don't catch you and kill you, you can leave. Just don't come back. So like when he was telling me stories about that stuff, I was kind of like, wow. So stuff like that. Yeah. Hearing stories like that or seeing stuff like that. Yeah. But I mean, like I said, that's once again, it's not horror. It's just put in perspective, you know, like, but like dream wise, or even reality stuff I've experienced, you know, I mean, I've gotten spanked before where I felt like my spirit left my body. That just wasn't good.
I had mentioned earlier that, so for most people, let me rephrase that. For a lot of people, horror starts off as scary and then gradually grows into being something exciting. It sounds like for you, you pretty much enjoyed it from the get-go. Didn't have a lot of exposure to it in childhood other than a handful of things. But then kind of got into it in your teenage years, and it was more of an enjoyment thing. So far, you've pretty much, the one thing that you said was vampires are kind of cool and seductive and charming. Is there any other enjoyment out of it that you've gotten other than that, or any other source, or is it because it just sounds like you're saying, well, they're cool, you know?
Well, I mean, it is horror. It makes me happy. It makes me happy. It's just being a writer. A lot of times when people go do things story wise, whether it's film or books or whatever, that makes me think, especially if it makes me think in a different way, opens my eyes to different possibilities. That's always great to me. So the additional enjoyment would be just the fact that, like, when if there's a plot twist or the way they built it up, and it's like, oh wow, that's so cool. Whether it's vampires or whatever, just it's something that makes me think differently than I originally thought, or if it's something I wouldn't have written myself, I'm like, wow, awesome. So stuff like that. And because I think if you look at it, I think I was kind of the opposite of what, like you said, people are like normally like, ooh, I'm so scared. Then, oh, this is so cool. I was kind of like, ooh, this is so cool. Ooh, those were slightly scary. Back to being cool again. So mine is more like a roller coaster instead of like that graph that just kind of goes from one and then goes to the other extreme. Mine is like that roller coaster. Like, depends on the project, depends how cool it was. Like, because it's even different when I started acting in them. You know, like when I met Marcus Cook. I think the first time I met him, he was doing makeup for me for, it might have been for As Night Falls, actually. But like just the process behind it, because, you know, of course, when you're watching it, you don't pay attention to like how different colors affect the moods and help build tension, or different sound effects or different music even. And so when you're involved in it, it changes that whole paradigm. It's kind of like, oh wow, that's what happened, or that person was right there off screen, pumping the blood, so it looked like so and so was doing so and so, or seeing effects done where it's like they make the bone like it's popping out. It's like, oh, that's just like some cotton and Caro syrup. Interesting. So like once you kind of demystify it, you get a whole new appreciation for it too. So like looking at stuff that I used to be like, wow, when I was younger, and now I'm kind of like, oh, I know how they did that. The only problem with that is that when you're watching a new movie, you're like, I know how they did that, and it sucks now. I have to take my brain out of this and just enjoy it.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking as you're describing that is, like you're saying, it's more of the cerebral thing, and it doesn't really touch on the emotional content of why it's cool in the first place. It's this additional layer on top of it. And you know, we're trying to dig at the bottom layer and find out what's causing the bottom layer.
I think I'm bottomless. Maybe I don't.
Well, I mean, you say that the vampire, like for example, vampires, you're like, well, it's cool, but why is it cool? You mentioned seductive. That's a good reason because there's, you know, the sex drive and something, you know, obviously there's a lot of people who can, what's the word I'm looking for? You can identify with wanting to be sexy.
Well, there's also the taboo element. Not necessarily like a fetishist taboo kind of thing, but no, there's also the taboo element in the fact that vampires are dark and evil by nature, so they're forbidden, or you know,
Well, yeah, and that ties into it. And then you also have that ties into it, and then you also have just that if you take them to their essence, they're really predators, you know. So it's kind of like along with being a seductive part, that's just something they. All right, this sounds like Twilight. I just remembered Edward Cullen says a line like this, but it's like we're very seductive, but that's just something we use. We're actually the ultimate predators, So it's kind of like that's just something in our arsenal to bring you closer, but don't get it messed up, don't get it twisted. We're still killers. This is what we do. This is how we survive. And so it popped in my mind that he said that. I'm sure there's other people that's probably said it too, but it's like, when you take some of that away, like when you see Let Me In or the American version, Let the Right One In, or I think that's what it was, or 30 Days of Night, or any of those other ones, it reminds you like, okay.
Or, there was a recent one, The Transition, I think.
I haven't seen that one.
Vampire film.
Was that good?
It's really good. Yeah. It's not part of what you're talking about. Like, it's more realistic, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, things like that is like, you want to be. It almost got to the point that we over romanticize them, And so it's like part of the draw is realizing there's layers to everything. So even if you've got Dracula, you have to, and the whole pining after the romance when he's not the old Dracula that they'd used in the film the one time by Gary Oldman. You still have Dracula, and at the end of it, he's running things. He's the one that's in charge. He's a killer, but he knows how to. Everything has its place, but he's still not hiding who he is or what his goals are. So I mean, there's the if you look at it as this is a creature or a person that just has to live on blood. He's going to kill you, but he's still like, if you look at the power that a lot of times vampires have. If you look at the self-control, because you think about it, if they're sitting there and they're looking at your vein and they're like, I really want to suck your blood, but in this moment I have to hold back those instincts and hold back my natural self because I have to accomplish something else that takes higher priority. There's a whole lot more to the concept of it, but bottom line, they're still killers. What's the saying about if you take a snake in, you nurse it, then you get surprised when the snake bites you? You shouldn't be surprised because the snake's just going to say, well, I was a snake. You knew that when you took me in.
I'm starting, I think I may have a picture here. So it sounds like you're identifying with a couple of different things that you want to identify with. You want to be sexy. You want to be cool. You want to be powerful. You want to be intelligent and have self-control. Well, you're right. But when you say...
Are you trying to say I'm not sexy and intelligent?
What I'm saying is that... like Chris said, who doesn't? But yeah, everybody does want to be those things. Well, probably everybody wants to be those things. But, what we associate with those things is different for every person. Like for me, when I think about a lot of those things, to me, the thing that would jump to mind would be a panther or a tiger or like a big cat. And for you, the thing that you're identifying with is the vampire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's almost like you want to see yourself in it, like wish fulfillment. I mean, it's almost the same. If you're looking at it that way, like I also used to like to watch Happy Days. Definitely not.
Well,
not
just wish fulfillment, but almost like I want to say like a role model, like an ideal of this is where I want to be. This is where I want to go. This is how I want to live my life.
Your avatar.
Yeah. Hey, let me grab my charger real quick. I know this is probably a bad point to do it, but it's either that or risky cutting off on you. So give me just a moment.
All right. So I guess this is a good place to stop and ask everyone to come check out the other projects that Chris and I are working on. If you go to horrormakesushappy.com and go to the About page, there's a short bio for each of us along with some links.
About.
The main the About page. That's only on the .ca site. The main thing that I have going on right now is a book that I wrote a few years ago where I collected together about 80 different tools that I collected through counseling and 12-step meetings. You can get it in paper book or e-versions. You can get that on Amazon and many other places. But if you go through the link on the About page, it'll take you to the page that I set up for the book. And through there's a link to a place called Smashwords and Lulu. Smashwords has the ebook and Lulu has a paperback version. If you go through there, I get a couple of pennies, but if you'd rather go through Amazon, that's fine too. in the next couple months, I'd like to start a YouTube channel where I talk about each of the tools and more, because I have created a short list of additional topics that I have thought of after I published that book that I thought, oh, I could have put that in there. So I've got some more on the back burner. But for right now, the main thing's the book. Chris, what are you working on?
Oh, the usual. Finding different ways to dispose of bodies in different areas of town. Anybody who has a wheat grinder for wheat and not bones?
Wheat with a T or weed with a D?
Sure, both.
No, not off the top of my head. Just asking for clarification.
Gotcha.
If I come across anyone, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a friend. Asking for a friend who needs a wheat grinder. No, the usual projects I have working on, my whole Pieces side project, which I believe is also linked in my bio, where you can just head on over to piecesofflesh.com and you can check out all the stuffs there about the whole Pieces universe project, extremely high aspiration goals of one day making it into a film, full-length feature film of the whole Pieces story. Before that, short film based on the comic Meat, which that's another thing that I have going on. I've got the webcomic on the Pieces website, Volume 1 being Meat, which is finished, Volume 2 being Snares, which is currently ongoing. So I guess that's what I've got going on constantly right now. Let's see.
So the plan is you've done Meat, going to do Snares. Are you going to do a couple other intro stories and then do the short, or are you going to go like hopscotch through different stuff?
A little of both, I think. Yeah, ultimately, I think I've got 5 official volumes planned. 6th one in secret. There's 1 is Meat, 2 is the Snares, 3 I think is going to be Rook, 4 is going to be Hilda and Fang's story, and 5 is Father's backstory, which has a lot of their other characters' backstories kind of thrown into it.
I was just going to comment, for those who have not yet read the comic, these are the characters' names.
Ah, yes, yeah. Story about a clan of crazy
Misfits.
cannibal ghouls, and that's all their names. And then, Volume 6.
I thought there was more than 5.
Huh?
I thought there was more than 5.
Yeah, Volume 6 is Confessions of a Knife.
No. Characters.
Oh, yeah. No, that's there's only going to be 6 volumes because I have only managed to make 1.5 volumes in 5 years. So, but now they're going to be like certain characters are going to be put together. Like the Snares volume right now, there's 3 characters in that. It's about Snare, Sid, and Lexa.
True. Yeah.
Oh, and also in the near future, I will be looking at printing and possibly publishing a hard copy comic of Meat. That's hard copy, not hard cover. It's going to be like typical graphic novel style, about roughly 38 pages, soft cover, and potentially alt covers as well. I'm speaking to a few artist friends on Facebook that are in the indie horror circuit, and also in similar projects like the comic Sharp Knives. It's illustrated by Martin Trafford, so I'm going to see if I can get him to. And I believe he's actually already agreed to do some alt covers for the hard copy Meat comic. That's going to be sweet.
I was going to make a joke about holding a gun to his head, but I guess in this form it'd be holding a knife to his throat.
Yes, a sharp knife. That would be difficult to do. He lives in Australia.
You'd have to have some very long arms.
Long pants.
Light globes.
Forgot about light globes.
Long pants. Everybody wears long pants.
Long pants. Long pants, long pants.
I'm a long pants man. All right. So where were we? We were talking about.
I think we were like 3/4 of the way into adolescence.
Yeah, we were kind of taking a break and talking about avatars and not idolizing, but
avatars works.
What was
It's
the
like the
word?
one episode of Always Sunny where like they have their avatars, their archetypes of what they aspire to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of see it almost like wish fulfillment of avatars. I mean, same thing with superheroes too. Like, a lot of people identify with Spider-Man, myself included. Although Batman's still my favorite, but a lot of people identify with Spider-Man because he was a teenage guy or a high school guy going through all the angst and the drama, and he's always the one that's beat down. But he can always switch over and be Spider-Man and be that carefree, go lucky, a guy with powers who can stop villains, so it's kind of like, so the same thing would be like, say, for vampires and I guess werewolves too, depending on who writes the story. Sometimes they're the kind of same thing. They're that sympathetic, drama-filled person who's gone through a lot, but then the women are attracted to him because of that animal instinct, the animal attraction type of thing. So it all depends. But I don't know what that says for people who love zombies though, so.
Well, the common thread there between Spider-Man and Batman and vampires is power.
Yeah, true. Or escape. No, power. Don't mind me.
It escaped from your life, your regular humdrum life, to embrace power and become more than what you are. How about that?
There you go. We'll go with that one. But yeah, zombies. What is the allure? That's
Yeah, because I don't think there's too many zombies to get women unless they're biting them and eating their brains. So
yeah. So back to, I guess we could probably move on to adult because we asked most of the teenage questions.
Yeah.
For adults, you mentioned Blade was kind of like on the cusp. What other things have really stood out to you as an adult in the horror industry?
As an adult, actually, a lot more because I not just Blade
worked in it.
Not just Blade and other stuff like that too, as a fan, but because I've worked in it now, because I've been exposed to more indie films. So not just.
Well, let's talk about it as a fan.
As an adult, like I say, I have a new appreciation because I can appreciate when they do something right more. Like when I was younger, you just wow, cool. Now as a fan, I could be like, oh shit, it's like. When they really
so what films do you think really did something right?
Now I have to think. I used to watch movies like all the time. Let's see. Lately, I'm trying to think of what came out lately. While it wasn't scary per se, but Bird Box was good. Fuck you. How about that?
He's the guest, not you.
Right. You're right.
I thought it was good, not because of Sandra Bullock and all that, but just like the concept. Something that there was some shit that where I think the only came in is the fact that some of the shit that she did, you're not gonna do if you can't see shit. So that doesn't make sense. But if you take that above the norm or that exception out of it, just the concept of there's something that's stalking you and you can't see it coming. So people's biggest fear is usually the build up. But in this case, you don't even know it's the build up to them motherfuckers right up on you because you can't see shit. You see what I'm saying? So if you lose your senses, how do you compensate? For blind people, they compensate with the other senses. For deaf people, they compensate with the other senses. In this case, we took away your one sense that you really would value the most, and you have to compensate in the scope of the whole world. So I like that idea. So I like that. I'm trying to think of what else came out recently.
Well, I hate to be the one to keep bringing it up, but there's always, Ari Aster's works. There's Hereditary, Midsommar. Midsommar wasn't really so much a horror movie.
Midsommar I haven't seen. Hereditary was good though.
Yeah.
Something we gonna meet after all this shit is over. All this ant shit.
I'll give Bird Box a rewatch. I've only seen it once, and there were certain.
It was good for one watch. I have no reason to go back to watch it again. It was good for that one watch. But like I said, it's certain things like I would pick up and be like, oh, the Conjuring movies are pretty good. You're gonna air again, but fuck you. But the Conjuring movies are pretty good.
No, they're all right. They're all right.
Annabelle was decent. But that's was it Blumhouse is doing all of those, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Annabelle is Blumhouse. That's their whole universe.
Okay, yeah. So Blumhouse is pretty good at doing horror movies. The Invisible Man, now to me, Invisible Man was I like the scientific, the tech aspect of it, but it was still
Yeah.
But overall, they do pretty
good. I liked who was that?
Don't say Fantasy Island.
Her performance was.
Oh, the performance.
No.
The lady was from some show that I never watched, so she was brand new to me.
She was from Handmaid's Tale, but she's been in so much more. Yeah, Elizabeth Moss. She fucking killed it in The New Invisible Man. That was
She
what
did a good
really
job.
kind of
Just the
drew me in for
concept
that.
was like the concept didn't really grab me, but I like the fact that they tried something different.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, so American Horror Story I never really watched. I watched a couple episodes. It was okay. Vampire Diaries is
they
basically
had
Twilight
good seasons of
City.
bad.
Yeah, I'm just shorting down the horror stuff on IMDb. So
let's focus on the ones that you did mention off the top of your head. You mentioned 30 Days a Night. What did you like about that one?
It was like taking vampires back to like being hunters, even though it was like they showed that okay, they're civilized. They have their own language. They have plans. They know what they're doing. Like we're coming here. It's 30 days a night here. I mean, it's based off a comic book too, so that helped too. But we know that in this area we have 30 days to come in, to move in, basically kill and feast, and then leave no trace of who we are. You know, that we were ever here. We still have to live in shadows, but we're not just these ravenous creatures, nor are we these sexy creatures. You know, we are who we are. We're this horde. We're this nomadic tribe that goes around and does what we have to do because this is how we survive. But we have to survive in a way that makes sense. You know, so that was just very cool. And even the survivors, they did a good story with that too, in terms of like how they survived and, you know, having to adapt to like, okay, we're not the top of the food chain. And not only are we not the top of the food chain, they can do better tricks than we can because they're not animals. You know, so it's not like they're just hunting us. They're actually, you know, setting up traps and shit. You know, like all of that. The whole thing was well done. I know in the comic book they had sequels to it. I don't think they ever did. No, they did. I think they did write one sequel to the movie.
They did. It was 30 Days a Night, Darker Days, and the first one was good. The first one was good.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a huge fan of 30 Days a Night too. So maybe I was expecting more for a sequel. But to me, and I don't know if you'll identify with this one too, because you said you used to play D&D. Did you ever play any White Wolf, like Vampire the Masquerade?
I know of it. I've never played it, but I do know what you're talking about.
Okay.
What about Let the Right One In?
Oh man, see, which one was the American one?
I was about to say, first off, the first question we need to ask on that topic is original foreign or U.S. remake?
I like them both for different reasons. The original foreign, I think, was superior.
I can't pick a favorite.
Yeah, well, I think the original foreign was superior because just the conceptually, it was. I think it was a bit strong. I mean, it originally came from that, and plus you had to read, so you had to focus intently on it. You know, you can't like miss the lines and shit because you got to read it. The remake was good though, but it's kind of like okay, instead of setting a tone and a mood, it was more like okay, well, let's pick the right actors that would make people want to watch the film. You know, so I think when you don't like a lot of times when they do major movies, the directors will say, "Well, I want to cast an unknown because I don't want them to have preconceived notions of who these people are or who this character is going to be." So I think the foreign one was that because I didn't know anybody. I could just be in that film. Yeah. You know, whereas the American one, I forgot who. I think they cast the one girl. Was it Hit Girl? What's her name? Yeah. They cast her, so like I'm already like, okay, she's a pretty good actress, and I like the fact that she, you know, kick ass and all that shit. So I'm kind of like, I already know kind of how I'm gonna feel about the film. Versus when I saw the original one, I'm like, I'm just liking the film. You know, so but yeah, they were both good as far as quality level. They're about equal. I agree, but like I said, I'd have to defer to the original.
Other than the tone and the mood, what did you like about the first one?
Just the concept. Like I actually have a character I created who was a kid, basically. So same idea, but I haven't fleshed out stories for him yet. But mine is a boy. Theirs was a girl. But just the fact that they showed how the game would be played. Like if you took that singular story, because with vampires, you can tell multiple stories, especially cinematically, even more than comic book wise. And this is that vampire story. Same thing with humans. I mean, if you really think about it, every human has their own story. But you took her story and like, this is how she survives. She deceives people until she gets to the moment she's ready to move on. And as she's doing it, she's being meticulous about how she kills, how she proceeds, how much she gives away, who could be aware of her. Just seeing that is almost like I want to say Helen Keller, but it's not Helen Keller. Who was the one that was in the attic during the Nazi thing? Anne Frank?
Anne Frank.
Anne Frank, yeah, that's what I thought. I want to say that, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, it's almost like an Anne Frank of, you know, it's like, here's how I survived in a situation that I really shouldn't survive in. Same thing for Let Me In. Here's how I survived. I'm a vampire. I got to do some shit that I may not even be proud of, but I have to do it. And then in the case of the story, is like, I see my future. I'm opening up to this one kid because he's as hurt as I am. But I know I really shouldn't be doing this. You know, but instead of me joining his world, I'm bringing him into my world.
Right.
You know, so hey kid, I got to kill this motherfucker. Time for you to get some cleaning done. You know, so it's like when you see that survivalist thing with the told story, it brings more to the table than just the average vampire who's like, I'm there and I'm going to kill you. Oh, fuck, I'm going to kill you too. Ooh, sunlight, got to watch out. You know, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has that allure of just a different angle by nature.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a group of friends that you enjoy horror with now?
Yeah. Well, when Britain was open, me and some friends would do movie nights. So what we would do is we could basically take whatever we wanted to watch and put it on the big screen.
Okay.
So it wasn't always horror, but 90% of the time it was a horror film.
Okay.
So a lot of times I would find new stuff or rewatch old stuff that I hadn't seen in a while. I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't realize this. Or wow, that was cool. I'm happy y'all introduced me to that. So we would do that all the time. They put it from Redbox, or one of the guys used to actually, his side hustle was no longer in print films. He would put those out. So a lot of times we'd see stuff that he was like, oh man, they haven't shown this in 30 years. You should watch it. You guys should like this one. Or he finds some foreign, some shit that we hadn't heard of. And like, so I'd be introduced to newer stuff like that. It was like, but like I said, at that point, we're just appreciating, because we all love films, or horror films specifically, but appreciating film in general. We would literally just 3-4 guys, we have some beers, sit and watch, whatever DVD or whatever streaming thing, but on a 30-foot screen. It was awesome.
Have you participated in Halloween as an adult?
Couple of friends have Halloween parties. Once again, that's why I usually I do like the basic dress up. Like, ooh, let me grab my trench coat and get some more fangs. Take my katana if I feel like it. I'm Blade again. Me.
Let me ask a question. Stepping away from horror for a minute, what movie do you think you have watched more times than any other? Not asking which one is your favorite, just which one have you watched more times than any other?
Batman.
The original one with Michael Keaton?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a Batman junkie, so that's like, for that list, it would always be like the number one. I mean, I've watched multiple films multiple times. Like probably Lost Boys would be up in the running, Candyman would be up in the running, but that I can concrete say, yeah, I watch it. I watch it as regularly now as I used to, but it'll be in the rotation if I want to go back to a movie. Yeah, Batman. They say Batman 89 now because, of course, the Christian Bale and Nolan ones. But yeah, Batman 89 would definitely be like my go-to. That's when I watch most.
Yeah, you were real quick with that answer.
I know what the answer is going to be to the next question. Again, it'll be a quick one, but I'll ask anyway. Do you have any common threads about what kind of horror you like?
Well, like you said, the answer is vampires. But let's see.
So the next question is, do you have any idea why it is you like those things? I think we kind of already touched on this, but to expand on it a little more, because there's really two things I'm hearing. One is the thing we talked about the avatar or the role model and all the different things related to that. The other side of it is, as a writer, you're very interested in a lot of the, coming up with new ideas and interesting ways to tell stories, and the kinds of things that writers are interested in, if that makes sense.
Well, vampires, we touched on that. For other ones, it's so it'll be a 2-part answer. So the first part is that if it's something that I think is possible, or even based on a real story, it's like, well, how did they get there? Like, what was their journey?
Yeah,
so I really like seeing those things. So a lot of times I'll look at not necessarily documentaries, but if they say something like loosely based on a true story, or like, I mean, of course, what was it? Psycho and
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, they have the same root story, but they're based on actually the same story. Yeah. But it's their own versions, their own spins on them. So it's like stuff like that. Lady
like a deer.
Huh?
He gutted that lady like a deer.
Yep. But things like that are things that they'll draw me in. And then also if it's obviously it's fictional, like there's no tie into to anything realistic based, then it's like, okay, well, if it's a trailer I'm watching or something I'm hearing about, it's like, well, are you telling me something that might not be plausible in terms of it happening in real life, but it's something that can draw you in. So if it's a trailer I'm watching and it's kind of like, okay, oh man, I wasn't expecting that. I want to see how they got there. Yeah, if I get that kind of feeling about the trailer, then I'll probably watch it in the theater because I'm like, okay, well, I actually want to see what got me to the point where by the end of the trailer, I'm actually like, this could be good.
So now that we've narrowed in on what it is that you enjoy, sort of the last question there is, but why horror? Because there could be any other number of genres or other things that could trigger those kinds of things that you like.
They do. Comic books. I've been reading them since I was damn near born.
Right. But what I mean, was there something that zeroed you in on vampires as opposed to who knows what else?
The question is like, why specifically horror when there are the same thing in other genres?
I think horror has the most possibility of getting you on the edge of your seat. So, like, if you see a drama like that, it's still, this family versus that family, or this person in love with that person, but it didn't work out because of the third person they never got over, or whatever. And somebody probably gets shot, somebody probably gets slapped, stuff like that. But so you get the drama and the tension, but you don't get like that edge. To me, at least, you don't get that edge of your seat. What's going to happen? You just know something's going to happen, and when is it going to happen? If you look at regular stuff, horror can okay, are they going to do the jump scare? Are they going to build to this? And then everything changes. As it's going to be, is this really what it appears to be? And a lot of times, to me, for horror, you have at least the most potential for that to be the case. Versus, like I said, if you look at something regular, you kind of know. If it's a superhero, even the best I love superhero films, okay, if it's the Avengers, something's gonna happen. There'll be a little confusion. They're gonna unite. They're gonna kick the bad guy's ass. Pretty much kind of hard to surprise you on that.
Which kind of goes back to what I said about, your interest in things as a writer, because that's really what it boils down to, is having a lot of unknowns in the path of the story. It would be an interesting thing from the point of view of not only as the writer, but also the reader, but it attaches to both sides for you, both as a fan and as a producer.
Good point. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, that's what I appreciate, when it's done right. So yeah, that's a very astute observation, sir.
It hits on multiple levels.
Yeah. Kind of like a good woman, but that's a whole different topic.
I see you did there.
Back to the not safe for work stuff. And in closing, no, I mean, well, we have reached the end of the interview, but that was a joke, but yeah, it fits. Yeah. No, I think this is good. I mean, we narrowed it down to at least two things, which is better than nothing. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, for you, it seems like the two things are the role model thing, and then the interest as a writer, as being an author on your own part.
Yeah. It's honestly, I hadn't really thought that deep about it. Just for me, that's just is what it is. But no, that's a good point. I had like I said, those things will get me to sit there and watch a movie, or at least give something a chance. I think, at least I like to think. I know I have some friends who tell me, "Oh man, you want people to think too hard about it. You should dumb it down." I'm like, but that's no fun. Let them think a little bit. Shit.
Right?
There's a time and a place for everything.
Dumb everything down. It's just going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, there is a market for mindless pablum. To I guess, I don't know if I'm saying it nicely or not, but there's a market for people who don't have to think. Like I said, those people who want it back to back, a jump scare, this, that, whatever the case may be. It's like, but are you really appreciating it, or you just like the fact that the endorphins or whatever that's released when you go makes you feel good, But are you really appreciating it for what
it gives me an idea?
Beyond
it gives me an idea. We should, if we could contact the people who run Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, but they should have a metric that is posted with every movie of how intellectual. I was going to say intellectual level. Like, is this just a dumb, funny, or adventure movie, no thought required whatsoever, or is it very intellectual, has multiple layers? You're going to need to watch it multiple times to catch all the nuances. There should be a rating that's published with the movies so that you could pick, well, I'm not in the mood for, a thinking movie right now. I just want to watch something stupid or funny, versus I'm in the mood for something that I need to chew on, Anyway.
How like a brain quotient? What percentage of your brain will you need to use to watch this movie?
But see, it depends who's doing the ratings on that. I mean, I would personally love a rating like that just because it'd be interesting. Like, oh, I need to sit down and enjoy this motherfucker. Versus like, it's an hour and a half, but I'll have fulfilled my jump scare quotient for the day. So that, to me that would be great. But I don't think a lot of people would actually go by that. They'd be like, because like I said, the average watcher or viewer these days, they don't want, they'd see like, oh, it's a 5, tomato intellectual product. I'm not going to watch that shit. I had to think too hard.
Well, regardless, at the end of the interviews, we also give our guest a moment to spotlight whatever it is that they're working on next, or what they want the listener to be aware of. You had mentioned a couple things at the start of the call. You can either reiterate those, or if there's something else on your mind that you want to tell people about, feel free.
Okay. I'm working on the My Last Vow web series. So support that. Episode 1 is on YouTube. I'm getting ready to work on a short animated one, but we don't have a name and everything right now. It's not my concept, but it's a friend of mine that's doing it, Jeff Earls or JS Earls on Facebook. And he's a great writer. He's done a lot of projects, comic book projects and other projects as well. But as that's coming out, you can follow me on my Facebook fan page, Ken Anthony II. Just search for it and like it. And of course, there'll be more information on that. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. I'm working with Carlos Segura on his film, Honor Amongst Thieves. So that looks to be a good feature. It's his first feature. He's done a couple of different short films. And it's my first time working with him. So it's a good experience so far. Look forward to see how that turns out. There's one called Stay Focused that I'm acting in. I think it's going to be a short film by Cherie. And, of course, my own project, Support Artistic License Studio for comic books and film. Look at my films, my short films, and my vampire films that I've done too. Not as good as Let Me In, but that's my focus on the writer. But anyways, Portrait and Blood and Survival Instinct. And just support indie creatives, film projects, comics, podcasts, all that fun stuff.
And like I said, we'll put together a bio page for you on the Horror Makes Us Happy webpage, and we can link to whatever you want us to link to. So we'll talk about that offline. Well, Ken, thank you very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It was a fun time.
We enjoyed it as well. And thank you to anyone out there listening. Please, again, do come visit us at horrormakesushappy.com. We'll have a schedule posted there to show who we're interviewing next, as well as the list of the people we'd like to interview. If you can help us connect with any of those people, or if you know anyone you'd like to have added to the list, let us know. You can also become a Patreon supporter and link to our social media. In general, just come let us know how we're doing. horrormakesushappy.com.